This is the CraftRhythm from Modal. But what is it? What can it do? And perhaps more importantly, what sets it apart from other small portable samplers and drum machines? All will be explained in this in-depth review. My name is Bo, and this is Bo Beats. Both the Craft Synth and the CraftRhythm comes beautifully packaged, and yes, you do have to put it together yourself. I would call it a semi-DIY project because it doesn't really require any soldering, and there's a very easy step-by-step guide or manual that you can follow. And even though I'm not a handy guy, I had no trouble putting this together, so I'm pretty sure anybody could do it. And I'm actually thinking about doing a little project with my daughter, putting together the Craft Synth with her. So be sure to leave a little thumbs up if you want to see me and the daughter assemble the Craft Synth, possibly breaking it in the process. So what is the CraftRhythm? Well, it's an 8-track drum sampler or sample player, and just so we're clear, you can't sample into it. The only way to get samples onto the CraftRhythm is via the Craft app. Now the samples are 64 in number. They are 16-bit mono samples, 44.1 kilohertz. There are plenty of ways to shape the sound on the unit itself, and I will go over all of the different ways here in this video, but there's no onboard effects like reverb or chorus, which is something that I'd like to see. You power the CraftRhythm using USB via a computer or maybe a smartphone or a battery pack. The unit itself can house 16 patterns, and you can chain them together, forming longer songs. You can also store 8 kits with specific settings for samples, which you can switch between quickly in order to totally change up the sound. The I/O on the device is a headphones output and a mains output. There is no MIDI I/O on the device itself. So first off, let's talk about basic operation. You can input notes in 2 different ways. You can either step sequence them or live record them. In order to step sequence, you just select the track, hold, here we have some kind of percussion sound, hold that, press select. Now when we press these 16 little buttons here, the steps light up, and those are the active steps that we'll be playing. Now you can of course live record. You do it by just pressing start, letting the sequencer run, and you hold it down. And when you hear the metronome, you can just play something on the pads. As I said, you have 64 samples, and selecting a sample is pretty straightforward. You hold the shift and tap button here and the track, and the top row here corresponds to the banks, the 8 banks, and the second row to the 8 samples. So, for example, I have put, these are all custom samples that I put in, and for example here in bank number 1 I have bass samples, and in bank number 2 I have pad samples. Now we have a kick on track number 1. Here we have some chord on track number 2. Well, I think I want a clap. But remember, if we don't select the new track, holding down track and pressing select, we're still in track number 1. So let's put down some drum grooves. Now let's add something more. Here's a bass. I'm not sure about that. So let's select the track. Oh, this little percussion sound sounds good. Track number 4. Okay. kind of shaker-esque stuff. Now let's talk about the knobs and the corresponding functions. And in order to do that, we'll look at the software. So in order to use this little device effectively, you need to use the Craft app. It works on Android and it works on Mac OS and Windows and on iOS. So basically you can use it with a smartphone or a computer. In normal circumstances, I wouldn't really have thought that was such a good idea because, you know, you want to have this kind of standalone. But the way the app works is that it gives you a really nice graphical representation of what's going on. So let me just build a little bit more on the drum beat, and then I can show you on the app what these knobs do, depending on how you want to use them and the settings of the track and so on. So let's build some more. So let's look at the application here. Basically, you have a little play button here, then you have the global settings. In the global settings, you have tempo, pretty straightforward. We're running at 90 BPM at the moment. You have tap tempo, you have restart. You can also set a division. This can be accessed also if we look at the device here, very simply here by using the select here and turning the knob here. So for example, let's see here. So now we're in 1/8 of the tempo and 1/4 of the tempo, and we can run back to 1/16. There's also a swing setting, of course. So we have 11 swing at the moment. There's a volume setting, but there's also different groove modes that you can access, and you access them here on the device here. So as you can see here, it says groove over here. Next up, we have the kit structure. And for anybody who's familiar with Electron devices, you know that the kits work as a sort of save state for all the samples that we're using, for all 8 samples. So basically what you can do on the device itself is they can quickly switch between different kits of sounds in order to change up the sounds drastically. So you can have one kit with one kick drum on track number 1 and one kit with another kick drum on kit number 2. So you can switch between them very quickly. So what we're looking at here is the settings for the sounds. We have a mixer here with a panning option. So this is just for an individual sample. We have a filter here. So this is a low pass filter. You can't switch it. It's just one setting for the filter. You have this little EG here, EG intensity knob here, which impacts the filter EG envelope. So you have an EG envelope for the filter. Let's listen how that can sound. So we just played around a little bit with the filter EG here. And as you can see, it's an attack, hold, and decay. And the same goes down here for the AEG, well, the amp envelope generator. So let's play a little bit with that as well. As you can see down here, it says 4-voice polyphony, and I think I mentioned it before, but if I didn't, it's very important to note that the polyphony of the device is decided depending on how many tracks you have with actual tuning enabled. So if we look here, there's a speed here. Basically, we can turn this off, and as you see, the voice polyphony goes up by 1. So whenever we enable a tuning mode on a track, you get a decrease of 1 polyphony. And there are 3 different tuning modes here. So let's talk a little bit about them. The speed mode is a basic pitch shifter. It doesn't really maintain the length of the sample, it just pitches it up and down. And then we have the stretch option, which stretches out the sample. So even if you pitch it down in pitch, you'll still have the same or similar length. And then you have the shift. And the shift is interesting because you have a tuning function here, as well as the EG here, or EG intensity knob here, and you have attack, hold, and decay for the pitch. So let's listen to that as well. So this basically covers the sound shaping possibilities of the device, but I just want to show you that it's very accessible on the device itself as well. So without holding down anything, you have the track volume here, your tuning, but tuning only works if you have a tuning mode enabled. So we hold select, and you see here this little light here, it's lit. This means that there is no tuning option. So let's enable one. And then you have cutoff and resonance. Now if we hold play, you get panning. You also get attack, hold, and decay. If we hold shift here, you get access to the EG amount for the filter and the attack, the hold, and the decay. And if you hold play and shift at the same time, you access the EG for the tuning, as well as the attack, the hold, and decay. And also, of course, if you don't hold anything, it can still impact the tuning, so you have to do that. But you also have to make sure, if you hold select here, that you are in the fourth of all these different modes here. The fourth, or rather, the third, so it's not switched off. And 1, 2, 3, the third tuning mode, which is the shift mode. So let's press play.
Vänta nu.
Du trycker.
Jag ser den.
Next up, we're taking a look at how to do parameter automation. There are 4 parameter lanes that you can use for automation, and basically you can automate 1 parameter per lane. So on track number 3 here, I want to have a little pad sound. Let's see here, let's put down a note. And as you might see here, suddenly, it becomes a little bit boring. You have the 16 steps and the pad just repeats. But here's where the parameter automations come into play. So we'll go over to the computer and check out the parameter automations for track number 3 here. And just a quick note, if you want to enable them, you just go here, click the select, and then you have these 3 buttons here, or 4 buttons rather. So it's 9 to 12 in order to enable the lanes of parameter automation. And in order to record, you simply just hold one of these buttons down for a period of time. You can see that it starts flashing. This means that it's ready to record whatever knob that you're twisting. So in the software we have all these modes here, and on the left side we have the animator. So go into the animator, and as you can see it's still flashing record here because we enabled the record mode. I'll click that off. So here you can see track. Now let's switch it up to track number 3 because that's the track we want to use. And now we'll initialize it. And here's the interesting thing that you need to know and understand is that you can set a different speed for the automations. So what you can see here is that the first lane is running at the same tempo as the track, but the second lane here is running much slower because it's actually a fourth of the speed of the track or the tempo of the track. So what I'm thinking here is we'll go up to 8. And now when we're up to 8x, we can switch and we can use tuning. And in order to just check so we're doing this correctly, we'll go back into Kit and we'll make sure we're on track number 3 and we'll use stretch, the time stretch mode, in order to influence the pitch of the sound. So let's go back to Animator. So what I've done now is I've set up an automation that changes the pitch of both the bassline and the pad every 16 steps.
Subconscious thought, subconscious thought, subconscious thought, subconscious thought, subconscious thought.
Next up, I want to show you yet another cool feature of these automation lanes. We are going to parameter lock the sample per step using the automation lane. So notice how the sound is changing whenever I change the value on this automation lane. Basically you have all the 64 samples available and they can be locked on each step. So you can have one sample playing on one step and another sample playing on another. But there's no way to randomize this, so to create a variation you'll still need to use multiple patterns and chain them together. Now you can use the CraftRhythm together with a smartphone, and the application is pretty much the same as it is on a computer, but I have also run into a couple of issues where the application has crashed on me, and I don't think it's on my end. I think it's some kind of instability with the hardware and software integration there, so just keep that in mind. Hopefully they'll patch it further down the line. Lastly, let's talk about sample and sample transfer. This is me running the app on the computer. I'm using an iMac, and basically you have access under the manager tab to all the 64 slots. It's very simple. You just select a folder, it shows you all the samples that are available in that folder, and then you just drag and drop. And it goes, well, I wouldn't say that is a quick sample transfer. A longer sample does take a little bit more time. Maybe it has to do with conversion. I think it's a little bit too slow to be something that's out in 2018. So what do I think about this device and who is it for? Well, the obvious comparison is to a pocket operator, but while there are similarities in how they look and the design of the unit, these are ultimately quite different devices. So you could say that this is a pocket operator for anybody who really wants computer and smartphone connectivity. And this is important because it has to do with portability. The pocket operators are very portable and the CraftRhythm is maybe not so much. You need a battery pack, a smartphone or a computer to power it, and even if you have all of that, you still don't want to drop it in your bag because of the design. It'll break if you drop something on top of it. Now the pocket operators, due to the more slim design, doesn't have this problem as much. So who is it for? Well, I would say it's for somebody who wants a small semi-portable drum machine / sample player with computer integration, and that last part is important because the great visual representation that the app provides sets it apart from the pocket operators. So if you want to see what's actually going on, the graphics are really helpful and quite nice, and I can totally see this being a fun and educational tool for a beginner, for example. And also the pads are responsive and you can actually finger drum on them. Now try doing that on a pocket operator. I'm not a fan of the knobs. They are quite plasticky and they are not very nice to turn. And another drawback, and something I really like Modal to add for a Mark II unit, is a MIDI port. A real physical MIDI port would have made this so much better, because that would have set it apart from the pocket operators, as well as making it super useful in a bigger synth setup. So guys, this was my review of the Modal CraftRhythm. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting the like button, consider subscribing, and if you want to support my videos, you can always head over to patreon.com/bowbeats for a little monthly donation. So guys, all links are in the description, and I hope you have a pleasant day. Thank you so much.